Welcome back to Golden Rule Radio, your weekly precious metals update. We're going to jump right into gold, and we climbed through the resistance point that Miles pointed out at $12.59 last week. We're currently looking at $12.72 today. Miles, you still feel like we might drop to the 40-week, or where are you leaning?
Yeah, we're going to see a fair bit of resistance here between $12.72, $12.75 from this little price action level I've got circled on the chart. We're about $20 away from recent highs this year at $12.95. Anything above that is screaming bull market for gold pricing. I would still like to see $12.25 on the gold price, although the higher we get, the less likely we are to see it.
I think that's especially true when you take into consideration the seasonal trends that we see in gold. We are turning the corner here in August and into September, where we tend to get the bullish numbers rearing their head. So how about silver? It's looking strong, and you pointed out the compressing pennant last week. Looking for a move above 1690. We didn't quite get there. We're in the mid 1670s now, and we briefly saw 1680, 83.
Yeah, we had an interday above 1690, but we just couldn't close up there. So I'm still hoping to see 1690 plus on silver. Also, light gold, once we get above some of these levels, start arguing that we're taking that next step up in the bull market.
So speaking of other white metal ratios, the platinum palladium ratio is relatively unchanged, but in terms of where we are price-wise, Miles, what about platinum?
Well, we've had a bunch of lines drawn on the platinum chart for a while and blew right through that compressing pennant. Platinum now sitting in the 950s, breaking above a top trend level. I think that the next major stopping point for platinum's between 960 and 970, but we could end up blowing right through that. That is a 618 fib, so that is where we'd see some resistance, but platinum is finally starting to show that strength that we've been waiting for, given that ratio you mentioned a minute ago.
Yeah, and you pointed out a couple weeks ago that we had moved off of 825 on the palladium price. That was a support level, and resistance at 871 and 891. And here we are. We've gone right through both of them.
Yeah, palladium has put in a new high for this year, and we're scraping that 900 level. The U.S. dollar has continued Robert's water slide pattern, and I've been calling for 92 for a while. Last week, we weren't really sure if we're going to see the dollar take its bounce back up yet. Looks like it wasn't going to, and we're now in the mid-92s. So I do still think the dollar is going to be sub-92. I think we're off, about 10% so far this year?
We are, from the earlier highs this year that it put in, and that's an ugly chart. If you like a strong dollar, if you like your hedge in gold, it's a beautiful chart.
Yeah, and anywhere in here between sub-92 and around high 93 to 94 range, you could see a turnaround, because we have had some support in here multiple times over the last year or two. So this is definitely going to be decision day coming up for the U.S. dollar. Are we going to see a revised strength in the dollar? Are we going to see the inflation take over that we've all been expecting? We're definitely going to find out what the dollar wants to do here over the next couple of weeks. And I'm voting down, and more down is scary.
I am too, and a lot of the reason I'm voting down is because Wall Street's finally showing signs, of inflation. And as commodity prices are rising at the fastest pace in 5 years, that doesn't bode well for the U.S. dollar, and to me, it's the initiation of a trend. So even though oil dropped 2% yesterday, it's still up 24% year over year. Copper's up 30% year over year, and that doesn't bode well necessarily for the economy or for Wall Street. So again, I'm with you. I'm looking for continued currency weakness.
Well, and with Wall Street, we talked about the Dow hitting 22K last week, and the Dow did hit 22K this week. So a 000. Not that there's any reason to, but double and triple zeros usually have a little bit of psychological effect. We've beat the Dow to death over the last few weeks. There are dozens of technical reasons why we should be reaching a high in the Dow here shortly. I think one of the new ones to look at is the Dow Transportation Average. Dow Transport should lead the Dow Industrials, because if you're not shipping goods and services you've produced, then you're not actually selling anything. And the Dow Transports, which I called for a 10K move up with the industrials going up to 22, well, they didn't do that. In fact, they turned down pretty sharp here over the past week. So maybe we're starting to see a little bit of a break. Maybe the Dow Transports do turn up. I'd still like to see 10K there, but ultimately, I think we're seeing that top.
I tend to urge that my clients add to ounces at this time of year. Be positioned by the end of August, because we start to see seasonally as well weakness in the equities markets. And so between the bullishness in the metals, what we're seeing in commodities prices across the board, and with seasonal trends being that there's a lot of downward pressure in the equities markets in this fourth quarter of the government's fiscal year. I look for that downturn to accentuate the need for adding to physical metals ounces. Also, economically speaking, I think, Miles, the biggest news might be the automotive industry. Ford, GM, and Chrysler all missed estimates. GM's down 15%. And on top of that, we've talked about having a bubble in auto loans. And so we're seeing inventory spike. And that, to me, again, if we focus on a few barometers in this show, we'll point out the biggest one. And that, to me, is a big one.
So automotive down, commodities up, equities are up, but the transports are down. Gold is up, and the U.S. dollar is dropping. There's not a lot of consistency, it seems, in the markets right now.
So from a housekeeping standpoint, next week's show is going to focus a little bit more on the macro or fundamental. We're going to have some discussion items rather than more of the technical emphasis that you've been seeing. And then also, we want to make sure that you have an opportunity to catch the last briefing. We're in Denver next week, Tuesday evening at 6:30 p.m. You can register for that at McIlvaneyICA.com/briefing. Many of our advisors will be there, so you'll get an opportunity to shake a hand at the same time.
So thanks again for joining us this week. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at ICA Gold and subscribe to this podcast by clicking the subscribe button below. And of course, at any time, if you have any questions, you're always welcome to give us a call at 1-800-525-9556.
Tune in next week.